Welcome to Her Wisdom Collective, a sanctuary for stories, truth, and transformation. I'm Lucy Ibarra. I am your host, and each week I sit down with women and others who are redefining what it means to grow, to heal, to speak up, and to take up space. This is a celebration of the messy, the magical, the bold, and the becoming. Here, no one is too loud, too sensitive, too ambitious, or too much. Because in this collective, your voice is your power, and your wisdom is worth sharing. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Her Wisdom Collective podcast. I am so grateful for this space, and this is a space where we come from a place of authenticity, truth, and we share our stories. And today, I am blessed to be on the opposite side of the couch. I have my incredible friend and sister, Anabel Vizcarra, who is about to ask me a few questions and allow me to introduce or reintroduce myself to all of you once again and my purpose, my drive, why I'm here. So with no further ado, my friend Anabel Vizcarra, welcome again.
Thank you. Here I am again. Yes. And I love sitting on this side, even though it's the same side,
Yes.
but of the being able to ask you questions so that we can get to know a little bit more about what drives you and who you are and why you are here. So I am excited to dive into this. Thank you, everyone. Welcome. If you know Lucy, you know that Lucy is one of the most incredible, empathetic, heart-fueled women that I know. And that also Lucy has had a really challenging life experience. And I mean that in the way that that's why you are who you are today, because you have not shied away from the challenges of life. And just to know you is to love you, as the saying goes. But not only that, to know you is to love you. I think that that's an easy part. I feel that whenever women are around you, and I see this because I see women around you, and I myself am around you, it's almost like you bring in this essence of wisdom, this essence of love and care that really infects all of us.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I mean that in the way like it inspires all of us to show up. And, you know, I've had some of the women like, wow, Lucy has created this and is doing that, and how amazing. And that's what you give so freely, not only to your children, 'cause you're an incredible mom, incredible grandma, wife, woman, but as a friend, you are such a soul essence sister. And I just love that about you. I even have to ask you sometimes, are you taking care of yourself?
I am.
Yes.
I am.
Well, you know, I
Absolutely.
constantly, because I see all that you're doing, I'm like, wait, I need to remind her. Is she
Yes.
taking care of herself?
Yes.
You know, and I think that that is who you are at an essence. I think a lot of us do that from sometimes wounded spaces. The way you show up is so inspirational. And I just want to acknowledge that in you and love you so much for it.
Thank
and
you.
celebrate you in that.
Thank you.
And with that, that's a little bit about Lucy.
Thank you.
But I would love to ask you things today that may maybe allow others to see you in the light that I see you, because we get to spend some really vulnerable times together, some really heart opening spaces together. And I feel that that is the source of your emanating beauty and radiance, and you know, all these changes that you've done in such a short period of time. So I will start with this question. What do you love about yourself the most right now?
Ooh. I honestly can say that how I show up for myself, because I feel that how I show up for myself was such a selfish thing in the past. That's how I viewed it.
Mhm.
That if I went to the gym, if I needed time or space, I wasn't giving to others. And I like the fact that I've realized that how I show up for myself allows me to nurture those relationships further. And when I nourish my heart, when I nourish my soul, when I'm spiritually fit, when I'm grounded and rooted, I mean, the meditations, the 20-minute meditations and prayers that we have for ourselves, the loving kindness meditation, even that, like, I just feel giving myself space to show up for myself gives me permission to show up as this version of myself where I get to really grow. So I
Mm.
think I love that the most about myself, that I am making that a priority, but because that does allow me to show up for others.
That's beautiful, beautiful. And what would you say is what actually allows you to show up? So you mentioned the meditation. What is a practice that Lucy does that maybe people don't know about that keeps you grounded in that and that reminds you when you're giving too much or, that allows you to come back into yourself? What would that be?
Uh, I love that question because I feel that sometimes you see people from the outside and you don't know the work that goes into showing up as that
Mhm.
person. And for me, I'm a mortgage lender, and through mortgage coaching, I read a book. Our coach had us read a book called The Miracle Morning, but I didn't realize how entwined that was going to be with the work that I'm doing now. Uh, I put that into practice every morning. I practice gratitude as soon as I wake up. I practice gratitude. Um, I might reach over and touch my husband's hand, and we'll I'll just have a little prayer or step into that space. But journaling, praying, meditation every morning. This is an every morning practice. My fitness, I view exercise as a form of prayer. I view it as a form of reverence to God because I am honoring my temple.
Mhm.
What I eat. This morning practice allows me to show up for the world more prepared. And even that allows me to talk to God about what's happening in that moment so that when my husband comes home later in the evening, I can be there for him because I've already talked to God about my stuff.
Mm.
So we can show up for each other. So there, that practice itself, I feel like my morning routine, if I don't stick to it, if I derail from it, there's a shift in the day. And the day doesn't, I don't know if it really is because it is a placebo effect, although I
Mhm.
don't think that is the case because I've seen so many miracles through my morning practice. And that has created the space for me to nurture my creativity, to do this, to plan for the podcast, to plan for my women's events, to plan for my fitness events, to plan for my children. It keeps me grounded. It keeps me grounded.
It's beautiful. And over the last year, actually,
Mhm.
over the last year, you have set out on some really big endeavors.
Yes.
You wrote your books, and that was something that you were very proud of, and you got it done.
Yes.
You're now birthing a podcast and creating space for these conversations. You renewed your vows,
Mm.
and you are celebrating your sobriety journey. So you've been in a lot of amazing things that are expansive, that are goals that you have set for yourself.
Mhm.
And you've also experienced a lot of downturns, a lot of challenges, and a lot of things that could have gotten in the way of those projects. What would you say was what allowed you to keep pouring life into those projects when life pulls you away from them through so many different challenges, but our family needs us or,
Mm.
work needs us or this emergency, there's always someone else's emergency. What would you say has supported you or helped you to stay
Yeah.
in that creative?
Yeah. Thank you for that question. I have sat with this through one of my moments of meditation, and kind of gathering my thoughts. And I know that my deep rooted faith in what I am set out to do and the responsibility that I have to my lineage and my family and being a woman at my age. I'm the tender age of 50 years old, and I have a limited amount of time to, I don't know what God's going to bless me with. It
Mm.
can be, hopefully it's many years, but the work that I'm doing right now, I get to do it so that my granddaughters and my grandsons, my nieces, my nephews, that they see a different version of what I got from some of my family, right? And
Mhm.
not to say that their journey was inadequate or not the right way, but I want it to be different. I
Mhm.
want things to be different. So I feel like, we recently lost my mother-in-law, and you were there for us through that process. And with such conviction, I showed up for my journaling. I stopped on my workouts. I definitely didn't do that, but I showed up for a lot of my practices because I knew that making space during that time, if I didn't do that for myself, I was going to snap at everybody. And I remember I have to look at those journal entries, but I remember lovingly writing into that book
Mm.
and being so rooted and so grounded and so present with my mother-in-law and my husband and my father-in-law that if I didn't stay true to myself, I was going to lose myself. And I got to be there for her and I got to hold her hand. And at the end of that, I mean, even having the women's event like a week before she passed away, um, even setting that boundary that I wasn't going to cancel the event because I needed to. She was excited about it. I was going to do
Mhm.
it in her honor and my mom's honor. There is such a responsibility that we have to ourselves. How many times do we show up for doctor's appointments? How many times do we show up for clients' appointments? We show up for all these other things, our children's doctor's appointments, conferences. We don't show up for ourselves. That's the one appointment that we're willing to miss. And I wasn't willing to miss those appointments with myself because I knew it was going to allow me to be fully present for my husband in his pain, in his frustration, in his anger, everything that I was feeling when I lost my mom. And how amazing that God gave me that gift to be there with her. So instead of coming from a place of why me, why is this happening to us? Why do I have to go through this again? I went through it with my mom and dad. It was the eye opening moment of thank you, God, for this gift. Thank you that I get to be the person that's here with her right now, that I get to hold her hand, that she feels my love,
Mhm.
that if there was ever anything there that she didn't appreciate about me as a daughter in law or that I didn't appreciate about her as a mother in law, minor things, right? Like little things that we deal with, but those are all gone. Those are all
Mhm.
gone because I'm so grateful for this moment. And I think that those practices of really staying rooted and grounded in my truth of how I want to show up for the world, that was center stage. That was me showing up in that moment and really putting into practice everything that I've done as far as the work for myself and my husband and the family.
Beautiful.
You.
I love that you brought up this word responsibility because I love this word.
Yes.
And in the context of responsibility as the ability to respond.
Mm.
And you have been someone who has carried responsibility all of your life. And now you're carrying responsibility as well. However, I can't help but notice that it's a different texture
Oof.
of responsibility and relationship to that, what that entails. So I feel that most women, or a lot of women, we're very good with responsibility, yet we are carrying it in a certain way that doesn't include ourselves. And you said when you start talking about responsibility, you start talking about your books and what you're leaving and passing on. Tell us a little bit more about the difference that you've experienced in that shift.
Wow. We're the eldest siblings, you and I,
Mhm.
and we've had this conversation of maybe resentments that I had in the aspect of responsibilities that were set upon us, right? Understanding that this was what we had to do and that was how it worked. That was
Mhm.
it. And not a bad thing as far as that our parents did the best that they could and with what they had. But the responsibility with resentment has now turned into a responsibility of love.
Mm.
It's very grounded in love. It is a responsibility, not where I feel the pressure of if I don't get this done, there's a punishment behind it.
Mm.
It is, if I get this done, the gift is tenfold. What is going to stay and what's going to happen and the lineage that is going to benefit from this is hopefully not going to just see me as a portrait on the wall, but the family member that was willing to step into the fire to really shift things for our family and speak truth and not hide, not cover up, be loud for our girls. I love to see my granddaughters, we just had her do that little testimonial for the book, and just to see
So
her
cute.
do that,
Yeah.
like I hope that they understand that my responsibility now, the shift of having a responsibility due to fear to having a responsibility due to me wanting better for my lineage and the family that's going to come after me, the women, the men that are going to come after me,
Mhm.
is so full of love and joy. It's very different. It feels very different than when you would get in trouble for not doing your homework in school, right? Like your
Mhm.
teachers, there was obviously a disciplinary action. Like my responsibility now is creating legacy. And that, I get chills thinking about it. That, I think to myself, when we all understand, if we honor responsibility that way, not just to ourselves, to the world, to our clients, to showing up whole and ready, it's what can come from it. I mean, I was sharing this with Mark 2 days ago, just knowing that I have to do something on my to-do list and finding the joy in getting it done, and not because like, it's out of the way, but like
Yes.
I called that client and can you believe like they're going through this, like God's timing. Like that's incredible that this happened in this conversation when I was calling to check on them to see if they were ready to buy their home, and instead it turned into me showing up for this client that just also lost their parent or is
Mm.
going through this divorce, or
Mhm.
so the responsibility to my job, to my career, to how I show up for myself is evolving into showing up in very beautiful, grounded ways that God needs me to show up in these spaces.
I'm celebrating that because that's such an important shift, pivot, maturity
Mm.
threshold of understanding that that responsibility that is placed on us by others typically doesn't include us, and therefore the resentment.
Mm.
And we still get it done. And
Yes.
many of us pride ourselves in that until we can't anymore.
Yeah.
And then now you being able to, through your own work, your grief work, your emotional work, all of these things that you have, like you said, jumped into the fire to be able to transmute for your family, for your line, your lineage. And now that very thing has now sparked the fire of responsibility in the way of creating a legacy of wisdom that you are passing down.
Mm.
And I really want to point that out because I think that's the difference between living a fulfilled life
Mm.
where you know that you are actually being regenerated by what you are creating versus you're slowly dying by what's been imposed on you. And I want to celebrate that in you because that is such an incredible, powerful place to live from, where you are just lit up, and all these other challenges that can come, but you've been able to also receive them and allow them to move through without losing yourself or cutting off parts of you that are also important.
Yes.
It's beautiful the beautiful ability to respond to your calling and to your own self-love. That's gorgeous.
Thank you.
I love that. So, another aspect of you that I love, that I find so much joy in, is seeing you and Mark together. I love you both so much, and seeing how you have evolved so much. You have been through so much, your sobriety journey, all these things. You know, you shared with me how he helped you with your mom when your mom was sick, like all these beautiful things and space that he has held for you. And now you being able to sort of, kind of like us, we're exchanging roles right now, right? I'm interviewing you, and you being able to show up for him while his mother transitioned. Tell me more about that love. I want to hear that
Ooh.
that love story. I want to just send that transmission out to everyone so we can all delight in this beautiful love.
It's interesting when I think back on the story of us. I always tell Mark, we're in this evolution of us at this point, and we didn't start like this, obviously. We did not start like this. Mark and I definitely had our challenges as we started in our relationship. We both drank when we got together. We literally turned into a new relationship the moment that we both decided we were no longer going to drink, because you think about, you're dating, you're going out clubbing, you're drinking together, you're going crazy, you're having fun. So it was relearning who we were without the alcohol. It was relearning who we were when the kids left home. It was relearning who we were as our parents started leaving this earth. Because now we didn't have that sanctuary of calling that parent. It was rewiring who we were in our relationship based on what we saw in our parents' relationships, what he learned and what I learned. So when we talk about rebirth, I think our marriage is the epitome of a rebirth when it comes to the changes that we were both willing to do and craving. We were both craving those changes, although we didn't know how to go about it. And, I tell Mark, I've had this conversation with him where every morning he gives me a hug and a kiss before he goes to work. We both get up really early in the morning. And I tell him, sometimes it's funny because you can tell, like, when he's in a rush or he's got to go. And I tell him, please don't rush the hug. Like that the nook of your armpit when I'm hugging you is like my favorite place on earth. Do not rush that. That's like the best part of my day. And that sets me up for the day, right? And that's not me saying that because I want to earn points with him, or my husband has become such a safe space for me. He has become my sanctuary, and we both have our days. I post, obviously our relationship sometimes, and I share how much I love him and how happy I am. And he's not very active on social media. I think his last post is like from 2020. I mean, it's, that's just him. That's who he is. But it's so rooted in authenticity when I post those things, because I think to myself, it's a celebration. Even, I went to a music festival last weekend, and I had a young kid stop me. He wanted to interview me, and he said, "Are you here? Are you here with people?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Okay, I see you're married, and, where's your husband?" I said, "He didn't come with me today." And he went on to ask me, "Well, is he okay with you being here?" And I said, "Absolutely." And he said, "Well, do you know where he's at today?" And I'm thinking, okay, is this an interview, or are we like, where is this going?
Right.
So,
what kind of interview is this?
Yes, I know. I'm like thinking, does this kid have a hidden agenda, or what's happening? And, he asked me, then we got into the good stuff, which really made me happy that he was 24, I think, young 24-year-old is asking me these questions. He said, so your husband's doing his thing. Yeah, he's at a union meeting, and then he's going to lunch with his friends. Like, we both do our own thing. And then when we come together, we're present with each other, but we're two individuals who we go nourish ourselves how we have to, and then we come together. At the end of the day, my highlight is that at the end of this concert, I get to go home to him and he's going to be there. And, he shut off the recorder and he was done. And he said, I needed to hear that today. I bought a ticket for my girlfriend and she didn't come with me. And I was so upset because I support her in all her stuff and all her shows she wants to go to, and she didn't come with me. It turned into a therapy session in the middle of the show. It was hilarious. But it also allowed me to celebrate this young man's vulnerability, that he was willing to share that with me, because I feel like I saw glimpses of Mark in him in that moment, where Mark is more vocal. I've done my work, but I tell Mark, for me, like, a guy can work out, he can have a six-pack, you can go and do all these other things for yourself. But the sexiest thing to me about you is when you're vulnerable. When you let your walls down and you share with me, that's the sexiest thing to me that a man can have. And I think that's where I've fallen deeper with him, is when we disagree, we disagree. And we've made it a point to say, like, do we want to be happy or we want to be right? And let's agree to disagree. And there's times where that kind of is thrown off to the side and we're still kind of trying to figure it out. Very transparent. We go through our moments, but we honor each other. When I left today to come record the podcast, you're going to do great. I'm proud of you. Have a good day. I'll see you when I get home from work, because he's working right now. And I think to myself, this is what Lucy, that went through her divorce, prayed for. This is what I prayed for, that I get to be myself in my fullness, that I get to use my voice. And I'm a very different Lucy than what I saw growing up. I'm a very different version of a woman who gets to use her voice to honor herself and the other women around her. He never judges, why are you posting about all these women, and why, you're you and your girlfriends. And no, if anything, hey, babe, how was your hike with the girls? And, so I'm appreciative of that. And I think having that is so rare. So I honor it. I definitely honor it. And it takes work on my part a lot of the times, as far as, I think the biggest thing I've had to work on is, Lucy, be quiet and listen. And still to this day, there's moments where he's saying something and I'll jump in because I want to fix, or I want to give my opinion, right? And he doesn't need that all the time. And that's been the biggest thing I've had to work on. Because I do want him to feel like what he has to say is important. And I think sometimes as women, we go in and we want to fix, and we think we have the answer, and they don't want the answer sometimes. They just want you to be a sounding board, So work goes in on both parts. I know he has a lot of patience with me. I know that I feel like he also honors where I'm at. I see the reverence that he gives to my words and what I have to share. And sometimes I feel like I have to stop because I'm overwhelming him with this excitement of these things that I'm going through. But I also feel like that gives him life as well. We were just talking about yesterday, or the day before, we were just talking about how when I got out of my own way, and I don't know if this is a January Capricorn thing, but that we are hard workers, but we can be procrastinators. I had that. And the second that I acknowledged him, I told him, the second I acknowledged that I was procrastinating on certain things, or I started something and it was just taking me a little bit longer to finish it. But once I acknowledged, like, I'm getting out of my own way, like, get out of your own BS. Like, seriously, Lucy, like, get out of it. What's happening here? The second I did that and stepped out of victim mode and, like, really got out of my own way, I executed. And we were basically talking about him and I being in our fitness and where we're at and wanting to nourish our bodies and no processed foods in the house. Like, I know the grandbabies are coming over, but why are we going to give them something that we wouldn't put in our own bodies? Like, we're not doing that. Yes. So, and it was a conversation that him and I were having. We were really I was enjoying kind of this banter that we had going back and forth. And old Lucy and old Mark, that conversation would not have happened. That conversation would not have happened where we give priority to where our mindset is so that we can show up as better versions of ourselves for each other and our family. And I mean, I see it in him. I see it in him with his dad. I see it in him with our kids. Uh, even him learning patience with like the kids are kids and they're going to want to do what they want to do. And if they want you to turn off the TV so you can go hang out with them, like that's just what we need to
Yeah.
do. So he's learning, I'm learning, and it's just giving each other grace at the end of the day, like really giving each other grace to evolve into who we need to evolve to and hopefully head in the right direction.
Beautiful.
you.
I keep saying beautiful, but it is all beautiful.
Thank you.
It's I am here in awe, just taking it in and celebrating you. And that's another word that I want to use for us to explore that a little bit further is celebration. Because you are someone that really celebrates others and that has learned to celebrate yourself. And the other piece of that celebration part is that you and I have had conversations around this. Like, not everybody likes it. So sometimes when we're celebrating, whether it's ourselves or our partnership, how has that played out for you, and how does that influence how you celebrate yourself?
This just came
Because
up.
we all think we celebrate
Yes.
others. Like, yeah,
Yes.
I'm happy for you.
And it's not that way. Yeah, I just had this conversation with a young girl at the gym this morning where she was talking about showing up for herself. And she said, sometimes people come into your field, and she started sharing that with me. And, I told her, for me, if I cared what people thought about what I'm doing, I wouldn't be doing half the stuff that I'm doing. If I cared about people's opinion about my relationship, we can't do that to ourselves. Like, I celebrate because it makes me happy, because it fulfills me, because it fulfills my husband, because it fulfills my family. I won't allow somebody to come into my space and take that joy from me, because I also give them grace because I understand that they're still in their stuff, but it's not mine, and I'm not going to take it. I'm not going to own that. So I'll let them be in that space for themselves. But I know how this journey, I know how my books, I know how the podcast, I know how the fitness events bring people together and allow me to celebrate everybody in one space. I am putting together a community hike, and it's been this special place for a small group of friends where we go up to the waterfall. We obviously are so connected with water. We find the joy in being in nature. For me, as a woman in menopause, it's so important to be in those spaces right now. And I think to myself, I want more women to know this feeling of community. Like I said at my event, if you don't know somebody here, if you came by yourself or you don't know many people, introduce yourself, because there may be a woman, a friendship here that is going to evolve into something that you might not already have. And I do really feel that having that network of people that cheers you on, whether it's small or large, it's nice to have it. It's not 100% necessary because you should be enough for yourself. But if you are going to have it, it has to be the right people. It has to be the right people that are going to celebrate with you, because I authentically, when I celebrate the women around me and the men around me, I celebrate my husband all the time. I'm celebrating your partner, right? But when we celebrate each other in life, there's no room for the gossip. There's no room for the negative. There's no room for the hatred. And when you really step into that space of devoted love for one another, everything that's happening out there as far as the hatred doesn't impact you, because you don't have the space for it. You have the space for what's important. So celebration for me is something that, despite what other people may think, or if they don't want to celebrate because they're in their own situation, I will give that to them. But that's not going to take away from me honoring myself and anything, small or large victory, that deserves it around me. I am 100% about, when I eat my breakfast in the sun, when I go for my walk and I'm watching the birds fly, or all those little things to me are celebrations because, I have vowed to live my life in the honor of my sister who passed away a few days before turning 27. And
Mhm.
to me, I think like if I'm still here, if God still has me here, it's because I have a duty and a responsibility to celebrate every aspect of my life. Old Lucy that wasn't in that space, I celebrate her too because she helped me get here.
Yes.
So it's really celebrating and being in a place of honoring every single fiber of who I am that allowed me to get here.
How do you how do you celebrate when things are so intense?
Ooh, uh,
How do you keep that? Because you mentioned you like to go out to nature, which we both share that.
mhm,
uh, it's finding the beauty in those moments.
mhm.
Yet, how do you do that when everything around you or everyone around you is either shaming you or guilting you or throwing up on you,
Yes,
the overwhelm and
yes.
all of these things because there is so much happening in the world. How do you do that? And how do you invite others to do that?
Yeah. I mean, in all honesty, for me, there's so much heaviness going on in the world right now. And
Mm.
I am super empathetic to the point where I understood that allowing myself to take on everything for everyone was drowning me. And I think acknowledging that and getting to a place of, I am not going to be blind to what's happening in the world, but what disservice am I doing to God and to myself if I sink so deeply into that I don't get to show up as a light for the world? If I don't get to show up as a light for the world, we're all headed for disaster. If there are not those beacons of light, if there are not those people that see it important to show up despite the darkness, how do we hold each other up? And I don't just mean our families, I mean each other as humans. How do we support one another? And for me, it's really important that with everything that's happening right now, I think for me, journaling and prayer is such a big thing. I really, if we're going to rely on God, if we're really going to say that we have faith and we're going to rely on God, let's do it. Let's not say that we're about it. Let's do it. Because if you're
Mhm.
saying that you rely on God and that God is at the forefront of everything, but you're living your life based in fear, you're really not honoring God. You're really not honoring your what you say your faith is. I have such blind faith, and for me, I think that's at the core of everything. I know that despite of everything that's happening in the world, life is going to turn out the way that it's supposed to, and me worrying isn't going to do anything for
Mm.
anyone. So I need to just be in a deep-rooted faith that life is going to work itself out, and I need to be in that mode of receiving because I might miss it if I'm too busy worrying about that other stuff.
Mm. Tying that into this podcast and why you created it. Tell me about that. What is the purpose, the intention? Why now? Why even Her Wisdom Collective? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, her Wisdom Collective, obviously the title itself, what I was able to bring forward with that was when we come together as women, what we can do as a unit, as a whole, is so much more grand than tearing each other down. I see social media and I see everything that's happening with these young girls, and I think to myself, if we can be an example, Obviously we have younger women in our beautiful web of women. We're so blessed to have that. And I think that in itself is already a lesson because we get to learn from them. They get to learn from us. But I think it's so important right now because when you have the right women in your space, I don't care how many times you fall, they're not going to allow you to stay there. They're going to pick you up. We're going to be there for each other. And if a young girl can learn that early on, it strips away that sister wound that I had to work on into my adulthood, where we understand that one woman's actions do not define the rest of the women that do want to be there for me as a sister. And that was very important for me. It was very important for me. My mom was, she was a force. Like she definitely, she was very involved in church and she was very involved in a lot of things. But when it came to what I felt was now as an adult, I feel was important and she needed to use her voice on, I feel like she dimmed her light in certain things. And I'm not willing to do that. I'm not willing to do that. Mark is very strong for that reason as well, because I will never put him in a place of, ever disrespecting him. I honor my husband. He nurtures this love that I have for life and these dreams that I have, which I'm so grateful for. But he also knows that he has a very strong wife. He also knows that he has a woman that through our conversations, he understands that life's situations, my previous marriage, different things that have come up in life have helped me evolve into this person. I like that I have that in myself because I think so many women don't have that, not because they don't have it, they don't know it's there. So I'm hoping that this podcast is going to allow women to embrace that side of themselves without feeling shame or guilt that they want to show up for themselves. And, the microphone for the podcast is very symbolic, right? We get to have a voice. And I want to be a voice for my mom. And I want to be a voice for my daughter. And I want to be a voice for myself. And this podcast came from that thought process. I am not looking to be an influencer or do that sort of deal where that's at the forefront. That's not. I have a group of women praying for the podcast, and the intention that I set forth with it was, if one woman, I hope many women, but if one woman hears something that allows them to turn up the volume on their voice, my prayer's been answered. If I have one woman that's in a bad situation, an abusive relationship, in an addiction, that needs to find that stronger version of themselves that they maybe have tucked away, that they're going to locate her somewhere in there because of maybe one sentence that they heard in here.
That feels so good. So good. I had this vision as you were speaking of that, and the voice and the microphone and these things, that when you create these spaces for conversation or for women to share, that it is almost as you are inviting their whole mother line to sit there and get to share and say the things that some of them never got to say. And that is so healing. And also such a great reminder that it isn't just about us. That when we share that voice, that insight, that story, that pain, we are also sharing that past that wasn't witnessed, that didn't get a chance to, but now we have the opportunity to. And what a blessing, and sometimes a burden.
Yes.
Yet when we do it, when it finally happens, you start to see, wow, I get to do that. I get to show up. I get to share this, and I get to sit across from someone else and see the entire mother line that is also there. informing everything. So congratulations on that. And so many blessings for this podcast and you as you continue to evolve and create all the things that your heart's desire, because it sounds like that's what you are about and that's what you are doing.
Yes, thank you.
And it is such an honor for me to get to witness that, to witness you grow into this and celebrate you when you're having your book launch, your podcast lunch. I was going to say because I'm hungry, but launch.
So am I.
And I am celebrating you, and I will always celebrate you because your win is my win. The win of your lineage is the win of mine. And it is so beautiful to get to sit here and bow in that recognition towards one another, that we may have met as Anabel and Lucy and related in that, but now it is a force, the force of Lucy, the force of Anabel, that get to play together, celebrate, pray, dance, cry, all the beautiful things that we get to do as humans.
Yes.
And always bring it back to the beauty, to finding the beauty. So thank you. Thank you with all of my heart and my being and my line. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anabel. Thank you for being such a light in my life, just for being who you are in my life. And thank you for helping me water the seeds. You've definitely, that you've been one of those people that champion all of our work, that when you water my seeds, it allows me to water other seeds as well. And I'm just very, very grateful for that. And thank you for talking to me today, for putting me in that position to, I think when you're being interviewed, you also get to know yourself a little bit further and a little bit deeper. Mm-hmm. And thank you for posing those questions that you so beautifully always do. I always say that you lovingly nudge me as opposed to push me, because it is a nudge, and it is very much done with love.
They're nose nudges.
to allow us to see ourselves in a different light. And I love who I am based on the work that I've done with you and that I've done with my husband. And it's not easy. It's not easy work. It's not easy work to own your truth and to, just stand in it. But when you stand on it and you get to that space, it is me honoring my lineage. It is me honoring my mom and her sacrifices, and my grandmother and her sacrifices, and how I get to show up. So thank you.
Well, blessings. And I'm going to ask you what you ask your guests to close the episode. Is there anything you would like to leave the audience with or invite them further into?
Yes, I definitely want to invite everybody to dig a little deeper within yourselves. I know the term do the work, or we're doing the work, is thrown around so loosely, and we don't know what that means. And it is literally diving into the depth of your sadness, your darkness, what you feel is an empty space, and finding the gold in that, looking at everything that's happened in your past and really figuring out what you can do for yourself to show up for yourself. And by starting to do the work, it is the most liberating thing that you're going to do. And it will pour over into your family, into your lineage. And if you want more information on how to start that journey, I'm more than willing to share with you so that you can find those spaces that are going to work for you. So thank you. Thank you to everybody that joined us on this podcast and for giving me a little space to get to know me a little further. Thank you for being on this journey with Her Wisdom Collective podcast, and just for honoring us and for giving us a space to be ourselves. So thank you so much to the audience and to everybody that joined us. Thank you for joining me on today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and share. Stay tuned for future Her Wisdom Collective episodes and for future Her Wisdom Collective events. Thank you so much. I appreciate your support and look forward to the next one.